Hello everyone and welcome to the Laddie Bar, but today it's a wee bit different because this is the virtual Laddie Bar and we have just run in from the actual Laddie Bar because we're back! We're back! It's absolutely incredible! Woo! And we have humans in here with us. I can't express the atmosphere that's out in the yard just now. It's absolutely incredible. However, it is quite nice to come inside and join my good friend Simon Coughlin, founder of Bruichladdich Distillery, and have a wee quiet dram. Does that sound good?
That's a brilliant idea.
Brilliant
Absolutely.
idea. Excellent. So I thought we'd start with a beer because you and I both love beer barley. Such an interesting dram. And just very, very delicious as well. Yeah. So it's always good to start with that. So how are you doing?
That's very good. Yeah, good. It's interesting that you're pouring that because I was thinking the masterclass this morning, any of you at home, and thanks for tuning in, is absolutely brilliant. If you're watching the masterclass, dram number 6 was Bruichladdich Rye, which is absolutely brilliant, you know, pioneering a whole new spirit, which is fantastic. And of course, with Bear, we did the same thing.
Exactly. And
which is brilliant.
We did beer back, first beer was it?
2005.
2005. So the first beer we did was 2005. Really, really interesting varietal. I think we're one of the few distilleries in Scotland that uses it, but it's so interesting, so dense, so delicious. So Slàinte mhath. Slàinte mhath to everyone at home. We hope you are rocking out. So last year it was a very intimate conversation, but this year we have studio guests that can ask questions, and if anybody at home wants to ask questions, we'd be delighted to hear from you. I think between us we've got a combined 342 years experience. Yeah, about right.
Just at Bruichladdich.
Just at Bruichladdich.
Yes, that's probably right. So, some days it does feel like 300, but not today.
Not today.
No.
So, can you remember the first festival? When you look at this, what do you remember?
Well, you know what? The funny thing about that is I thought the first festival was busy, and I saw a photograph quite recently of the courtyard, and it was like an old scout tent, a couple of barrels and about 20 people. Now there clearly were more people there than that, but when you compare that and to what goes on today, I mean, it's the day that I love. Just bumping into people, friends, supporters, people that have been on the journey with us for years. And it gives you a moment to sort of look back. You know, I tend not to look back that much, look forward because there's always something more to do and something new. But on a day like this, you just see what's going on. You go, you know, and a few people have said, you did this, you and your friends, which is very nice. It's incredible, you know, it's really nice.
Lovely. And it's amazing when you go out and you go into the courtyard. It just reminds you what's so special about whiskey, because you have folk from Singapore talking to folk from Port Ellen, and you have folk from Belgium talking to folk from Bridgend, you know. So it's just the international language of whiskey could not be more realised when it's down here today, and hopefully with you guys at home. Yeah. Now, we all know the resurrection story. We've all heard that. But we nearly didn't get this distillery. The sale nearly didn't go through. Is that right? Back in the day.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Let's get personal now, Simon. How scary was that?
Well, the whole thing was crazy because without going over old territory, I think the simple fact that people weren't doing what we were doing. You know, people weren't opening distilleries, certainly new ones. You know, there were very few of that. Of course, now there are many all over the world, which is brilliant, and it's exciting for the future and fantastic for the consumers, trying all these different things. But no, I mean, the whole plan was crazy from start to finish. But when it came to the sort of nitty-gritty of trying to get the deal done, honestly, there was a lot of serendipity and luck. There always has been in the Bruichladdich story, but certainly there, because we eventually persuaded the bank, and we managed to persuade enough shareholders and investors to back the project. But actually asking somebody, will you back this project? And them saying, yeah, I'm in, to then getting their cash are two very different things. And that was, and it dragged on and on and on and on and on. And I believe that actually our lawyer was at the checkout in Sainsbury's in Glasgow and bumped into the opposition lawyer. Ooh. And they were saying, are these guys serious? Is this gonna happen? And the guy said, don't, just give them a bit of time, it is gonna happen. And in that moment, it allowed us to call another meeting the following week, because they were about to walk away. Because they said, if this is not done by Christmas 2000, we're not selling. And we found out years later there were about another 5 or 6 consortiums queuing up behind us. So we would have lost it, actually, if we hadn't managed to beg, steal and borrow at the end. But we did it, but it was fairly frightening. Yeah.
The sliding door moment. Imagine that hadn't gone through. This would be a very different place.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we were short of about £1 million the day we actually signed, and Mark and I had to call some favours in from some of our ex-La Reserve wine customers to say, two of which actually weren't investing in the company, and we said, any chance you can all lend us £330,000 each today?
Wow.
And it arrived. It came in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Incredible.
Yeah. It's fairly scary. I don't like talking about them, actually. Oh, dear God. Oh, dear. I put that out of my memory from years ago.
I know, but I think like so much has changed. Like that period of when nobody, like buying a distillery was completely bonkers. It was crazy. It doesn't seem crazy now because with the rise in gin and white spirits and the rise in single malt whiskey drinkers as well, and whiskey tourism, it's much more accessible. And I was thinking about it as well with my dad. You know, the stories he tells are of characters like Jackie McCabe, and folk like that don't exist anymore because the whiskey industry isn't like that anymore. Like Dad's stories are very much about stealing whiskey. You know, very good way to steal whiskey. We've got some of the warehouse boys here as well. Apparently a Heinz mayonnaise bottle perfectly fits in the bunghole of a cask, and then you can steal the whiskey from a little rope, and then you slip it down your wellies, and you could just walk past the customs and excise men. There's a top tip for you.
Yeah.
They also used to have
a long time ago. Yes, any of our friends from HMRC are watching. That doesn't happen anymore.
So you had like that generation, which was completely different. Then it moved on to this generation, which was when you guys took over the distillery, and now here we are today. So, if you could go back and tell yourself something, give yourself a piece of advice, what would it have been? What would you be?
Oof,
Getting personal now, Simon, come on!
Well, I'm not sure they're all repeatable. Certainly not the two of us together over a dram, maybe, but as we've been broadcast. No, I mean, the great thing about being an entrepreneur, I suppose, if you want to sort of box it, is that you throw everything at it. If you believe something, you throw everything at it. I mean, even when after the second year, when we had to raise more money the following year, and all our investors said, "Yeah, we knew you'd be back." But when we came back the following year, they said, "That's a bit unfortunate. 3 years on the trot." But you know, you never raise enough money. You absolutely never raise enough money. So I think we didn't know that at the time. We did it. We scraped through with just enough cash to buy the business, but actually we had no cash to run the business, and I think that became a pretty scary moment. So I think make sure you're well financed, absolutely, more than anything else. But I think, you know, if you believe something, go for it, and I think that is what we did. And I think it was hard then because nobody had done it. You know, it was all pretty new. As you've said, you know, now starting a distillery is a fairly, not a common thing, but people get it, the banks get it, shareholders get it, finance people get it, whereas back then they were all going, even the Bank of Scotland said, "I'm sorry, our portfolio of whiskey is full, we're not lending you any money. Go and raise all the private equity you need first and then come back to us." And then we came back, so we've raised it, and they went, "Oh God, you're back." So they had to sort of put their hand in their pocket. But yeah, no, scary and exciting times. I mean, I had to mortgage my mother's house, you know, to raise the money. And I did ask my older brothers first, and my mum, and they said, "Look, is that okay?"
Yeah.
You know, so it's, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's incredible times, and here we are today. Now, last year, we opened a special dram, because you can. So we thought there would be an expectation to also do that. So, what is a special dram that we are going to open? Fraser's going, "Yeah, what's a special dram?" So, our first dram that we would like you to tell the story of is this one here. It's a Valinch bottling. Would you like to explain this while I open it and pour a dram just for Simon and I? You peasants can have what you have.
What I love about this bottle, this is the classic days when we used to print the labels in-house. And as you can see, this is terribly faded. And somebody said, oh, we could print a new one. I said, no, it's part of the journey. We used to print them in-house and on this very dodgy printer. And the moment they get any light, they just fade. You know, I've got a collection of these things in Warehouse 15. I bet you they've all got blank labels now. There'll be nothing on them. They've all disappeared. So this is quite interesting. Well, for two reasons. Well, actually, probably three reasons. Obviously, the festival this year is called the Rock and Roll. This has a picture of the Sex Pistols on it. Back in those days, I'm not sure we used to get any permission from anybody to use their logos and things.
No.
God Save the Queen. This was the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. And of course, this week is the Platinum Jubilee of the Queen, Elizabeth II. So this was one of those lynches. And the great thing about lynches is that, they're one-offs. These are casks that Adam comes across while he's putting cuvées together for the classic or whatever it might be, and he'll come across a cask and he says, actually, I'm going to keep that one. I'm going to keep that for a Valinge. But there was there's an added story to this, and it came a bit later. And I remembered I was walking down the King's Road in London in about 2012, and I saw a poster of the Sex Pistols in this cool poster shop, and I was very uncool going into this poster shop on the King's Road. And I believe we have it here actually. I saw this poster, which Robert is very kindly bringing in. And that is Robert behind there. So I saw this picture, and I remembered at that moment there was a blog done. It was a blog done by the Jew Malt Whiskey Society. I think they're based in New York actually, where they compared whiskey brands to rock bands. I've got that here somewhere lurking. I don't know if anybody can find it. It's here it is. Only reason I can't, I might read this to you. Thanks. Nobody saw you, Robert. Nobody. Don't worry. Well, the good thing is nobody out there saw you, so it's fine. And I remembered it, and I said there was something quite interesting about that, and I couldn't quite remember the connection. And I said there was a blog done many years ago by the Jew Malt Whiskey Review here, and I'll read some of it. I can't read all of it because some of it's a little risque. Bruichladdich, the band. Man, this is an easy one. Sex Pistols, simple, easy. Let's move on. Wait, you need more explanation? Okay. Back in 76, blah, 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 blah. And it talks about, rock was stagnating and disco was coming more popular, but Sex Pistols burst in the scene like a lion on a new kill. Compare this to Bruichladdich. Look at their kick-ass packaging of their all-over-the-place releases of yesteryear. And by yesteryear, I mean the past 8 to 10 years, blah, blah, blah. And it goes on a bit, and it says, and then, like Springbank, they're making 3 different whiskies in the same place, an unpeated one, Bruichladdich, you know all of that. What's more, if they have a still called Ugly Betty, by the way, which they're making gin, blah, 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 blah. My point, they are doing what they want to do and not what people expect from them. They don't give a shit, solid. And
amen to that, brother. Amen to that.
And it said to me, that's punk rock, and that's why they are the Sex Pistols of whiskey. And I never forgotten that, and it was very cool. Like most things, we never paid for this. That just came naturally from a supporter. And when I saw that, so that sits in my office here still. And when anybody comes in, they're always a bit surprised to see a poster of the Sex Pistols. And I say, that's to remind us never to lose all that stuff that we started and all that rock and roll stuff, the craziness, the madness. Let's not become too boring and corporate. We still need an edge, and it's really important to keep ourselves alive. So we tell that to new people that join the company as well, which is great.
Amen to that.
So this is the dram, is it? Yeah.
Let's taste it. I was going to describe what's in it, but I went blind over lockdown, and I can't read the label because it's so faded and I'm blind. So please,
I
Simon,
can.
continue.
So it was distilled in 1992, so it was from the previous, aged 20 years. When we did it was 250 bottles at 50% alcohol. Lovely. Doesn't actually tell us the cask type, but that's a minor detail. It's about tasting it. See what you
I would
think.
say it's a sherry cask.
It looks it, doesn't it? Yeah.
And it smells like a sherry cask. It's got that really, really intense dried grapes in it. Yeah. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. And it was very sweet actually, because when Bruichladdich not really about age. You know, there's this whole like older whiskey is better than younger whiskey, and we've never really subscribed to that. It's actually, we prefer to have a much more complex discussion about whiskey, because it's actually from the land all the way through to the dram. That's the important thing. So we went downstairs yesterday, I'll be honest, and we were saying like, what should we taste? And Simon was very, very sweet, as Simon always is, and he's like, well, yes, we could do some of the things, but you should just go for something that's so unique, because we want the rest of the team to taste it too. So we will share it with you all later. And that's also why we said we had to have 2 bottles. Yay, so there's something else down here. Because it's nice to share, because you know, there's lots of new people, or there's people that's been around for a while, but we don't ourselves get to try things like this very often. And if you are going in that wee time capsule, it's really nice to look back and taste it as well. So I thought that was a very sweet thing to think about, and it's an exceptional dram. I noticed we have poured ourselves significant drams, so you will have thumblefuls. But hey, that's the thing. So, time to take a stop and think. Does anybody have any questions? Or on the news desk, are there any questions coming in from the digital world that we should respond to? Bear with me. If there's any questions from the audience. Oh.
Simon.
Yeah.
I've always had this question. What is your favourite ever whiskey to come out of that Bruichladdich has produced?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it's always difficult to pinpoint it to one. Obviously, last year we talked about the 125th anniversary, which is a bit of a desert island whiskey for me. But for me, aged 100% in bourbon, Bruichladdich, at 16, 17, 18 years old, to me, it doesn't get any better. And in the masterclass, we had an 18-year-old in bourbon this morning, which was just sensational. So me, Bruichladdich in bourbon is I mean, of course I love it in sherry, but you get that marine note coming through, the acidity, the freshness, the marine note coming through with bourbon. I think that works really well. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for your question, Jay.
Yeah, I love bourbon.
Yeah. And by the way, can you teach me to play golf one day?
No.
Because I've been a member of Isla Golf Club for 16 years, and I must have played it 5 times. So I feel it's a bit of an investment in Isla, you know. But we keep trying.
We will, and we'll enjoy it.
Yeah, brilliant. We will.
And you can take a 16-year-old bourbon mature Bruichladdich with you.
Yeah, I'll bring the whiskey. Okay. Yeah. You bring your handicap.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yes, the age thing is interesting, because actually now we bought the distillery in 2001, and actually if you go back, you know, pre-Renaissance, it was closed between 94 and 2001, and when we bought the distillery, when you bought it, the 19th of December, I think there was about 6,000 casks, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But we've got a tiny, tiny, tiny amount left, haven't we?
Yeah, we still have just a few left. And
just a few.
And it's, you know, they're almost the crown jewels. You think, well, when we eventually put these out, it will be amazing. But you don't want to. It'd be very easy just to put them out now and sell them. But once it's gone, it's gone. And that was one of the beautiful things about the masterclass, and Adam talking about it this morning, was absolutely brilliant, talking about that sort of handing the baton over. So the distillers of, you know, from 1992, you know, and we were tasting that. They had no idea what journey, where that whiskey was going to end up. And of course, stuff that we're producing today, we have no idea how that's going to eventually be released, you know. Certainly after my time.
Exactly.
I mean, you'll still be here, Lynn.
Oh, yes, live forever.
Yeah,
connected to formaldehyde at the end of the night.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You know, and it's exciting. And the fact that we had 3 18-year-olds, we had an 18 Bruichladdich, an 18 Port Charlotte, and an 18-year-old Octomore. I mean, then you realise how long we've been at this. You know, but it was great. I find it always emotional in masterclass, because you're just sitting quietly in front of drams. You're seeing Adam there, as we know, started in 2004. You know, and you know, seeing all these people that seem to love what we do. It's a very proud moment. Actually, it's very special.
I tried the 18-year-old. I had it with Adam a few weeks ago as well. And it was really interesting because, you know, at an 18-year-old, you would expect it to be very mellow and very smooth, but it actually has real kind of energy to it, which actually just felt really appropriate, because much as you pretend you're tired, the energy that we still have, like the passion that we still have for the business, 18 years later, It's
Yeah.
big. It's big and it's loud and it's
Yeah.
huge. And actually, the 18-year-old felt reflective of that it
Yeah.
had that character almost welded into it. So I thought that was really cool. And just to go back to your point about, like this is a single cask and people revere single casks, like they are exceptional and it's better than like a vatting or a vintage. But there's a really interesting phrase by, I think it's Krug, that said, with vintage, God is the creator, but with non-vintage, I am God. So that assembling, taking different casks to make something greater than the whole, and then knowing which are the wee jewels that actually have to be kept secret. There's a real skill in not every cask can sit all by itself. Some casks should be the base notes. They should be the base notes, or they should be the top notes that come in. So it's just trying to get that balance. So single cask is not better, it's just a unique moment, and you need to build, it's like an orchestra, an assemblage.
Completely agree, yeah.
So this is really interesting because not all single casks, not everything should be a single cask, but when it is, when we've chosen it like this, it's a really special thing because it's been set apart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Set apart.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, well we need to keep a pace because we've got another whiskey. Doop, 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 doop. This is a bit ridiculous that we're getting to drink this one.
Yes.
That one. What is it, Simon? Do tell.
Well, it's Bruichladdich 40-year-old, and we've only ever done this once.
Yes. No second edition, no third edition.
No, none of that
None
edition
of that.
nonsense. It was a ridiculous idea. Right? But it was survival, Well, I just thought, to your point earlier, there's many people that have joined our team, particularly during lockdown, actually. I think we've had 35 people join over the last 2 years, the Laddie crew, so we're up at over 120 people now, I think. And of course, we were lucky enough to try this in some of those older casks back in the day, and of course they've got no idea about that. So I think it is an opportunity to share. And I think these casks, I was trying to rack my brain, I think they were 1964. Because I think we released this in about 2004 from memory. So it's the oldest thing we've ever put out. And I say age isn't everything, but it's quite interesting to dip back just to see what things were. And back then we weren't playing with wood either.
No.
So this is straight up, straight out of the cask as it happened, which is exciting. A little snippet. We do have one or two things of this age lurking in the warehouse.
Me, 44.
So it may make an appearance in due course when Adam thinks it's right. So this is very special.
Well, as always, it's a great pleasure. It's the only
Look at the
time.
colour though. See,
I know.
the things people get hung up on colour all the time. They go, oh, dark, must be old, must be amazing. No, I mean, it's just 40 years. Look at the colour. It's absolutely beautiful. It's just like classic Laddie colour. And I think that's one of the things. Your colour tells you very little, in my view. I mean, it tells me that it's bourbon rather than sherry, yes. But, don't get hung up on the colour. It's just not that important.
No, it's not. It doesn't. You have to. Don't drink with your eyes is our advice. Never drink with your eyes. This is 43.1%.
Yeah.
There we go.
And also, I think the other thing is, I mean, this has been sitting all corked up. It's like great wine. You've got to treat it with some care. It's going to take a little time to open up. Yes, it's a spirit. It's sort of indestructible, but treat it with respect. This was distilled back in the 60s. I mean, unbelievable.
I know.
And the fact that here we're opening it, and we'll share it with the team. Not all the team. There's not enough to go around, but as many as we can. So it's it's a special moment. Yeah.
Slàinte mhath.
Yeah,
Slàinte
absolutely.
mhath. This is the only time you'll hear Simon and I be quiet is when we actually. Yes, we promise we'll share later.
Yeah,
Slàinte mhath to everyone at home.
Yes, during the virtual, online sessions. Was it an Instagram Live we did or a Zoom? Who was it with? Was it Binny's? No.
Delilah's.
No, it was Delilah's in Boston, and they said, "Look, we need you for an hour." 4 hours later, we were still going. It was like 2 a.m, our time. But it was great because you've got people asking questions, having a good time, and it's nice. It's great to talk about the spirit, tell the stories, you know.
But that is so different. That is so different. It's got this lovely, and again,
wow.
When you're drinking older whiskey, Dad always said that younger whiskey's at the front of the palate, and then the older it gets, the further back the palate you get, until almost it's something like this, you feel it all the way back here, which is quite incredible. So it's got this lovely, almost like honeysuckle note right in the middle.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah. I mean, and don't get me wrong, we don't really, again, subscribe to tasting notes. We do them, but it's so subjective. Like what you taste is based on your olfactory memory. So if you've grown up in Singapore or in China, your olfactory memories will be very different to somebody who's brought up in Scotland. So never be intimidated by whiskey. Whiskey is not intimidating. Whiskey is cool and whiskey is sexy, and just enjoy it, just dive in. But if you do find notes, the cool thing about whiskey is there's so many different flavours, and I think that's the thing. It's such a complex spirit.
Yeah, and you're right. It's individual to everybody. In the wine business, as you know, is my background. People would say, "Oh, you should be smelling this." Sauvignon Blanc, the smell of cat's piss. And they go, well, I don't really want to smell that. And they Gewürztraminer is lychee. Well, I don't know what a lychee tastes like. I mean, I've maybe had one. So you've got to find your own link. And you go, right, okay, Bruichladdich bourbon's got that note, and you log it, which is exciting. That's an amazing. I mean, the beauty of this, at 43% alcohol, it doesn't need anything. Does it? Yeah. Doesn't need any water, nothing. It's absolutely beautiful. Smooth.
And that would be naturally 43%.
Naturally. Yeah. Because just a very boring fact. So back in the day, and most distilleries still do this, that they fill their casks at about 63.5% alcohol. And the reason for that is they all used to trade for fillings with each other for their blends. So it was much easier if everything was at 63.5. So basically, come off the still at 68, 69, 70, and then they would add water into the barrel for maturation. We decided early on, because we were never going to sell for blends, that we would just go straight in at still strength. So you get worried at stuff that's filled at 63.5. Will it still be above 40 when it gets to 40 years old? Because 40 is the minimum. But of course, hopefully some of the stuff that we've been doing now, filling at 69, 68, 69, 70, that could go on to be a 50, 60-year-old whiskey, which is
Dad always said on the whole, adding water before it goes into the cask. It's like, why would you distill water? Why would you mature water? Yeah. Why are you maturing water?
These warehouses cost a lot of money. We don't want to just put water in them.
Don't mature water. Just put the spirit straight into the casks and then see what happens. Then see it matures, and it does give you that opportunity to mature for longer as well. Because if you lose about 2% alcohol every year, about 0.8% of that is alcohol. The rest is water. Then you have that opportunity to have older whiskies as well. And what would they taste like? I think that's the interesting thing. What would they taste like? You have to be able to throw it out there and have a boundary to get towards. And it's further if you're coming in at a higher strength.
Yeah.
Beautiful. We've only actually got 2 minutes left, as ever. Simon, we've blethered away. Blethered is an excellent Scottish word for a conversation without any particular trajectory.
Purpose, in fact, at all.
It's a polite way to put it. Is there any other questions before we go?
I've got a question.
Yes, Douglas.
So, Simon, you briefly mentioned the number of new people that have joined the company. Back in 2000, there were 2 people. In 2010, there were 42 people, and today we're going to be 110 or there or thereabouts. What advice would you give to the next generation that have joined when working for a business that we think is as special as Bruichladdich?
That's a good question. Hopefully you picked up that question at home, but I think it's about opportunity. The opportunities. I think one of the great things about Bruichladdich is we don't do everything on Islay now, but we still do most of the things on Islay. But we've seen, particularly in the last few years, we've seen people move, from different departments and, get into IT or accounting. There's marketing. There's obviously all the production side, and as we get bigger, we need more people, and there are more opportunities. So I think if you're lucky enough to get in, and be part of the thing, the door is open. Anything can happen as part of the journey. And because, we've been on that journey, we've, as you say, we've created all those roles where there's more of a structure. And I think there's a real chance, and, but don't restrict yourself to one thing. I think, if you're interested in that part of the business, I've always fancied giving that a go, but I don't think I can. Just speak to somebody.
Like Robert.
Robert, there you go. Yeah.
Robert, who is our studio manager now, he is a mashman to trade. That was what he did, and he's now moved in the business. So there's lots of different opportunities. And from my perspective, I would just say the power of belief cannot be underestimated in anything you do, but particularly at Bruichladdich. I've probably cried more tears over Bruichladdich than anything else. But I've also met my husband through this business. I've also traveled the world through this business. I've met incredible people through this business. And it will take you to the edge, and it will break you. But if you believe, better days will always come.
Yeah.
And then you'll look out in that yard and you go, hell's bells. That is something pretty damn spectacular. And I'm glad I'm wearing the blue staff shirts. I'm glad I'm in. And you guys out there, when you come over and you hang out with us, honestly, it's such great fun, and I hope you're having fun at home. And we have kept to time in 30 minutes, and I've very much enjoyed our wee conversation again.
Absolutely,
and we've
Lynn.
got people beside us who are looking at us going, shut up, Lynn, we would like to have the 40-year-old whiskey, please. And we're going to do that. So thank you very much to everyone at home. Thank you very much to everybody here. Keep rocking out wherever you are. We're going to continue partying into the night. So go forth and be awesome, people.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers, everyone. Cheers. Cheers, Lynn.